I don't know. I got a text during the break, which is this. Curtis brought it up earlier this morning. This attitude by some Patriots fans where they're unhappy that the team went out and spent some money. I could read the text verbatim. Pats fans getting excited about a 32-year-old head case with a bad wheel is laughable.
What?
God.
Okay, here's my feeling on this. I understand trepidation around a 31-year-old returning from an ACL injury that happened in week 8 last season. That's totally reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still am a little concerned about that, but guess what? The Patriots have a lot more knowledge than the rest of us about his medicals, and they had him in here last week, so you have to assume that that's the bulk of what it was. The character concern stuff, to me, I don't think you're in a place to be picky about your locker room. I really don't. When it comes to elite talent and one of 2 premium positions that you were lacking on offense to support your quarterback going into his sophomore season, like you can't be so picky.
Does this make you feel better? Because I heard you on with Fitzy the last week, and you were saying that you were worried about how much is on Drake May's plate when he's the face of the team. He's the most important player. He's your best player. Does this take some of that off of it now?
I think so. I think just giving him a target, assuming again that Steph is going to be in there in October and that it's not going to be something where you sign him to a 3-year deal and you're waiting for him to come back sometime around November. Mm-hmm. I think that it lends a lot of support to him. And I don't know. I mean, people get worked up when they see $69 million. It's all about the guaranteed money. Yeah. And I think the guaranteed money is more reasonable.
Right. And everybody wanted Cooper Kupp, correct?
I wanted Cooper Kupp too, but you wouldn't trade for him. You wouldn't trade for him.
No, my point.
I wanted anybody.
No, but
I like Robert Kraft has been probably rightly so called cheap,
right.
and I wanted them to sign somebody, and they did. Like,
well,
that's
how the Red Sox ended up with Ralphie, if you remember. Well, no, I guess the only reason I'm saying that, my point is Cooper Kupp, older receiver, had an ACL injury. So, that's the nature of the beast nowadays. Like, guys tear their ACLs all the time, come back, and they're fine. So, Kendrick Bourne did it, and, he looks like he's been fine. And I understand what you're saying. There's a little hesitation there, but he's the best player in the room right now.
Yeah, to me, that's the hesitation, not the character concerns.
Yeah,
I also do think there's an aspect of this where if you talk to people and listen to people from Houston versus Minnesota, if you talk to people who knew any of us when we were 24 versus when we're 30, you're probably going to be a little bit of a different person at work, right?
No,
I do think some of this is people leaning into narratives from a long time ago.
They just want to complain.
If he's healthy, the wide receiver room got better. So I am
upgrade
about that. Speaking of injuries, maybe dodged a bullet on Jayson Tatum?
Seems that way.
Okay.
Seems that way. And I think that, like, I heard you guys talking yesterday about how much do you play the Jays for the rest of the season. It's a struggle every year when you are looking at a potential championship like this core has for the last several years at this point. The balance between, are you getting your starters together? Are you getting guys who a lineup that really hasn't seen a ton of time together compared to the previous year and getting their rhythm and their conditioning and timing and everything versus the risk of what you saw maybe happen. But the thing with that really bothered me is Tatum called out that exact kind of foul in November. Like, he called out that foul. He said, like, that somebody was recklessly closing out on him. It was Giannis at that time. Yeah. And it was a no call then. And this is something that the league tried to deal with in 2017, 2018 with the Zaza rule, as they call it, that you can't get in the landing area. And it's still an ongoing issue.
It's got to be hard, though, as a defender. You're trying your best to close out. I mean, because it obviously, like you said, it's the Kawhi Leonard thing that happened with him. And it's got to be – so you have to work on really close – I don't think it was intentional by Sabonis, but it's just a very difficult thing to do as a defender. Close out, still try to contest the shot, and still try to get out of the way and not be in his landing space, especially when guys are kicking their legs out and everything.
But
like
Tatum
that.
Doesn't do that.
No, Tatum don't do that.
Like, I understand the other side of that was James Harden, and he'd do the leg kick and then get the call, and so then they had to put in another rule, which is like very NBA. But I do think that there is a level of this that comes back to the officiating.
Right.
And there's this kind of tension between guys in the league and officials, not just in games, but the idea of how are these officials being held accountable? And Adam Silver, the commissioner, has said they are absolutely being held accountable. They're graded on every call. But it's kind of a mystery what that means. And for ankle sprains are the number one injury that NBA players face. And that is a very easy preventable way. If you start saying we are going to be so harsh on these closeout calls, and we're going to be harsh on officials when they don't call them because we know they lead to the number one injury for players, then coaches, players, like they're going to respond to that. They're going to be more careful.
So what? Just an immediate flagrant one every time that
well, it should be
right.
It is
so
by
if that
definition.
happens, players will just be more cautious about.
And
making
it
sure
was
that doesn't happen.
It was a different officiating crew in the Sacramento game versus the Bucks game back in November that Tatum basically called out. But then you also have players who are tiptoeing around what they're saying in press conferences because they don't want to get fined for calling out the officials.
Right.
Do you care about seeding where this team ends up heading into the playoffs in that first round?
Not really, because I think that it's just what it's been. Like, I think that they've kind of accepted the number 2 seed, even with Cleveland sliding, that's a comfortable enough place for them to determine most of their destiny.
And remind me, because it's complicated and changes all. It's they would play the 7 seed, which is a play-in.
Yeah,
would be a play-in winner, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I mean, I feel like if they're on, it doesn't matter who they are.
And then I think it's really when you start to look at teams that potentially could give Cleveland problems, or I don't think there's a team that could give you a problem. But if there is, then you factor as sometimes is it better to be the 2 seed based on where does Milwaukee land? But now with this Dame Lillard injury, who the hell knows with them? I just think that it's going to be you versus Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals because I don't see anybody else coming out of the East.
I don't either. Like, I think it could get interesting if you see the Cavs. I think that's a fun matchup, and it would go 6 or 7 games potentially. But I think the big bad threats are out west.
Mego, do you think the big 30-year high ratings for the NCAA has anything to do with people liking that style of basketball more than the threes in the NBA?
I don't know. I was pretty surprised to see those ratings. I don't know how you guys felt.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it just has more to do with gambling. Like, that's kind of where my head goes.
That was
if that's I know that sounds
terrible. You realize
terrible,
people have been gambling on March Madness for
Forever.
100 years.
but it's easier now.
Yeah.
But for 30 years, I mean, if they've been gambling on. I mean, for me, if it was like a slight uptick, then you would understand it. But maybe it's just how I feel, so maybe I'm projecting it onto something to have more meaning. But I just think that the way that the game is played, it's more attractive than the NBA has been, and maybe that's why.
I also sorry, Courtney, just really quick. I also think people have been making that particular argument of NCAA versus NBA for like 20 years. So
Yeah.
I don't think that it's necessarily something new. I know the NBA has gone in a much more dramatic direction of the 3-point shooting, but I have always heard people say, like my dad is always like, I just prefer the college game. It's a real team effort.
Right.
And I'm like, okay,
well, you
Dad.
used to be able to say, just a bunch of young guys and they're not getting paid and
Exactly.
they play defense, but
There's
now you
kind
can't say that because they're all getting paid.
That's what I was just going to bring up. The fact that I saw people on Twitch. I'm done watching billionaire crybabies, on the
That's what the
NBA
NBA
court.
is.
I love billionaire crybabies.
Your dad loves
Very entertaining. That's why we watch White Lotus.
Your dad loves 70 to 73 wins games.
Exactly.
But in all sincerity, outside of Cooper Flagg, how many people could you name that have been playing in the tournament?
I mean,
I couldn't.
And we're told that everything's star-driven.
Yeah,
like,
I couldn't.
Who's the star?
I think it's the colleges, really. In college,
It's the college
basketball. A lot of the time, it's the name on the jersey. I get the Cooper Flag one, but
those names have remained the same.
One texter had mentioned that there's a plethora of SEC teams. Is that a reason because they have so many eyes, like for college football, that some of those people are now coming over to basketball?
Maybe.
I would say that
SEC
the
is
Big
big
East
in-
being out of it and the biggest population base in the country not having any teams would be a bigger factor against it.
Yeah.
well, I mean, maybe the SEC is kind of like in basketball, the new Big East. It's kind of you start to see all the which when I was in college and I was in the SEC, it wasn't really known as a basketball conference. And so now Shine brought it up the other day. You're starting to see a lot of SEC basketball teams performing well.
Maybe it's all because of the McNeese manager, Curtis.
That's it.
I read online he's making $300 million a week.
Oh, really?
Or
Yeah,
a king.
He's well into six figures.
Oh my
12 NIL
God.
deals.
He's like the new Hawk Tua.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't.
Amir Khan.
Yeah.
You better hold on to it because just like Hawk Tua, that 15 minutes goes quick.
Don't
I
create a
can't, you
coin.
guys.